Padres once again looking up at the Dodgers 2 games back after an entertaining but ultimately disappointing 3-game series against the Seattle Mariners. The ball was flying there at what is it, T-Mobile? I'm still used to it being Safeco.
Safeco, yeah, that's how it was when we used to frequent it.
I feel like that it should still, it's one of those stadiums, but it should still be Safeco Field, but T-Mobile Park, whatever it is. Tough couple games, starting pitching, not awesome. Did see a bunch of homers. That was nice. That's an encouraging trend, but didn't see the wins they needed to keep pace with the Dodgers, who, of course, swept the Reds. Maybe rest in peace to Cincinnati's playoff hopes. We'll see about that. We will discuss. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp, and maybe a briefer pod than usual because, Derek, you've got some college football to cover tonight.
San Diego State opening their season tonight. How about that?
Let's
against the Stony Brook Sea Wolves, Seahawks, see something or other, Sea Wolves, I believe. The fighting Travis Jankowski's. I'm just going to call them that. Yeah.
There we go. So that should be a lot of fun. I'm hoping to dip out there as well, get our first glimpse of the Aztecs year 2 under Sean Lewis. So a bit of a time crunch. We'll talk some Padres. Of course, shout out to OGs, the sponsor of the On Friar podcast. Appreciate all they do for On Friar and the NBC7 sports team. If you need a place to maybe watch the Aztecs tonight, Padres, especially since they're on the road, college football season starting, NFL just around the corner, 1 week away from game 1 of the NFL season. OG is a great place to do it. A bunch of locations around San Diego County, great menu, constantly doing specials, new menu items, and an awesome beer list. So hit up OG's any chance you need a good bite to eat and want to go to a place where you can catch all the action. Without further ado, the welcome music. It is the On Friar podcast. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp. Pleased to be with you on a Thursday afternoon, day off for the Padres after a 3-game series in Seattle in which the Mariners take 2 of 3 from the Padres. And Derek, I need to give you credit for a prediction that you made a couple weeks back. Sure enough, Padres, Dodgers tied for first place at the end of that series. Unfortunately, that deadlock at the top did not last very long. Now 2 games back with LA holding the tiebreaker in hand.
Yeah, I was wrong about the tiebreaker part, but I will take being right about them being tied. So that's nice. And you know what? That's really, when you look at it, it's a no-lose situation for the Padres when the Dodgers are sweeping the Reds, because the Reds are the ones that are the closest chasers in the wild card for the Padres. So that helps. That series was going to help in the playoff push one way or another. So what it does is it gets the Padres closer to a playoff spot in general, and that's a good thing. I'm being positive today, Darnay.
I like this. Yeah, I texted our buddies John and Jim on my way in. I was listening to them. It was a lot of doom and gloom from John and Jim talking about the Padres.
Yeah,
I was like, does the rainy weather get you guys down or something like that? I get it. They've got some work to do, but we're not even in September yet. We saw how quickly they flipped from 2 games down to 1 game up with the help of the Angels a couple weeks ago. Now the Dodgers seem to be, starting to play better baseball. We'll see if they can, continue to get healthy and go on that trajectory. So you obviously don't want that, but I'm not ready to kind of set off the alarms just yet. Maybe I'm being a little bit naive, but the Padres have been in a position the last couple of weeks they simply haven't been in a long time. So I'm not ready quite yet to be like, it's over. So much for that.
No, what John and Jim never do is look at context. They just want the quick shock value take. Yeah, it's like it's a horrible matchup against the Mariners for them. It really is. They suck in the Vetter Cup. It has been this way for several years now. The Dodgers can't beat the Angels. Nobody in LA was freaking out because they couldn't figure out a way to beat the team, the inferior American League team. There, it is what it is. If they go and lay an egg in Minnesota against another inferior opponents, now we're going to have potentially some problems. And by the way, the Mariners, they're a good baseball team. They're right there in the mix to win the American League West as well. So you're in their ballpark. So it's there are a lot more positives going on right now than negatives. And the Padres have a 7-game lead on the Reds for the last to get a playoff spot. So I don't know what's bad about this, honestly. The offense looked really good. Luis Arraez got a much-needed day off. He'll have 2 straight days. Maybe he can find himself when he gets back on the field in Minnesota, the place he won his first batting title. It's way too much going on here that's good to be thinking that there's something that we should be upset about after they drop 2 or 3 in the Vetter Cup.
Yeah. I think I mostly agree. And, they were discussing kind of the larger playoff ramifications being behind the Cubs. And you and I have discussed this a little bit as well. If the division doesn't go in your favor, then you're thinking about a wild card series, and now the potential of going to Wrigley. And credit to Jim, he posted yesterday that the Padres are 1-9 this year in series played on the road against playoff teams. Which, you face good teams on the road, it's going to be tough to win series, but maybe some concern there because this has been a significantly better baseball team at home than on the road. And as you mentioned a couple weeks, you throw in kind of the weather element that comes at Wrigley as well.
The 43-22 at home and the 32-37 on the road. And that would suggest that you would like to host the wild card series. This is also a team that's only played 2 road series since the trade deadline. So this team is still going to figure out what it is as it moves forward. This is a much better team, a much deeper team. And as these guys continue to figure things out, I believe they will get better, especially on the road and especially against more higher caliber competition. So, and again, remember, when you're talking about a playoff series, it's a very different dynamic than you're dealing with when you're talking about a regular season series, because that Padres bullpen will be out in full force. All right. They're going to be deployed in a very different way. The game is played differently in the Padres right now with the way their roster is constructed, especially with the bullpen. They're built for October baseball. So I'm not nearly as concerned. I'm not just talking about going to a place like Philadelphia, because Citizens Bank Park, they can never win there. That place is just a nightmare for them. So you can avoid that. You should be in pretty good shape. And yeah, would it suck having to go to Wrigley Field with the colder weather in the first week of October? Yeah. Would it also be awesome to take a trip to Chicago, because Chicago is an awesome, fun city? Yeah.
John and Jim, not the only ones feeling the doom and gloom. The rain, the clouds, it's been warm. The sun's been out. It's been hot, and you have one rainy day, and people are acting like it's 2021
Dude,
again.
the rain is great. We woke up this morning energized. My wife and I were in the hot tub at 6 a.m. because it was raining. I mean, it's fun. People get out and enjoy the rain. This is good. This is fun. We don't get this very often. We don't get consistently good playoff caliber baseball very often. Why is everyone thinking this is a bad thing? My God, you're bringing me down, people. I'm almost on vacation. Don't do this before I go on vacation.
Maybe this will brighten up your day. From our buddy Brent, Cubs just lost.
Yes,
shout out to Bob
you,
Melvin's Giants, 4-3 over the Cubbies, and so a little help there. So
thank you, Brent, for being the voice of reason.
Sunny days ahead. And you do make a very good point. This appears to be a different team since the trade deadline. The potential, the ceiling of this team has certainly stepped up since the trade deadline. And so when you talk about kind of these season statistics and trends that Jim mentioned, that I certainly find interesting, to your point, how does that look now going forward since that trade? Now the Dodgers series, that didn't necessarily, they didn't change that trend or alter that perception at all based on what they did in LA, but really good team, Seattle as well. There's not going to be too many of these opportunities, I don't think, to face playoff teams on the road, given the nature of their schedule from here on out. But you do have to give them
a 3-game series in New York against the Mets in mid-September. That's it. Other than that, they're in Minnesota, they're in Colorado, and they're at whatever they call that horrible ballpark in Chicago that the White Sox play in.
And who knows what the state of the Mets will be. Just swept the Phillies, but some of these NL East teams, I don't always have the most faith. I don't necessarily want to see them in October, but I don't always have the most faith in them in September. They both seem prone to not being the best versions of themselves at this stage of the season, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I think the good news is there are winnable games going forward, and you don't have to go through LA in the conventional sense, because you're not playing them anymore the rest of the season. You're going to need some help, but you have series like the Twins. You have series like the Rockies coming up, where there will be opportunities to pick up some wins, theoretically speaking.
Yes, and by the way, don't forget the Padres have, as we go down the stretch here, starting right now, the easiest schedule in baseball. All right, it's not particularly close. They got 7 against the Rockies. They get the underachieving Orioles who sold off at home. They get the Diamondbacks at home. They get to go to Minnesota. They get this. This is not a terribly difficult. They get 3 at the White Sox, who have been given up for like 3 decades now since they won the World Series in 05. Like, this is not a terribly difficult schedule as we go down the stretch. And the teams you're talking about, okay, I'm looking at the Cubs schedule right now. They get to go to Colorado, so that's a wash. They have to host the Braves, which, I mean, they're not great this year, but they're always going to be, at least have some talent on the field. They have 3 more at the Braves. They have to face the Rays. They have to face the Reds on the road. They get the Mets and Cardinals. They have a more difficult schedule as we go down the stretch here. And they didn't do a whole lot of the trade deadline to address a lot of their needs. You don't know if the starting pitching is going to hold up nearly as well as it might want to. So it's, I feel good about the Padres' ability to, maybe if they can't run down the Dodgers in the division, maybe get up to that number 4 spot in the wild card and host either the Cubs or the Brewers or whoever decides to go out and win that division. It's good. This is going all. I feel like I'm Kevin Bacon in Animal House. Like, all is well, except I really mean it. Like, all is legitimately well. We're not trying to convince ourselves of this crap here.
Yeah, that series that the Padres have, second to last series of the season at home against the Brewers, could be sneaky compelling. Brewers, they went on a rampage. They've slowed down, have dropped 2 straight 4-6 in their last 10. 6-game cushion on the Cubs. I believe that is updated after the loss against the Giants. Correct. And that's still, we've seen teams come back from 6 games in September, so that's still very much a possibility. If that's within a few games, and you're looking at, and if the Padres are still able to kind of be in that division race, potentially 2 teams in a division race, and then also, when the dust settles, sorting out where things stand, if they drop then to the wild card, that could be a very, very interesting few days.
Well, the Brewers right now have a full 5-game lead on the Dodgers for the number 1 seed in the National League. Okay, assuming that continues, that series is the last, the 3 games, and then the final 3 games of the year will happen after that. So 6 games left in the season. Milwaukee could very well have already locked up the number 1 overall seed, and they could just be setting up their rotation, right? Or they could be fighting tooth and nail with any number of teams to get that number 1 overall seed, or even win their division, and that makes it a whole different dynamic. And the Padres are one of the few teams to already beat the Brewers in a series this year. So it could either mean absolutely nothing and the Brewers are basically trying to line themselves up, or it could mean absolutely everything because both teams are fighting maybe each other for playoff positioning. That series could be fascinating, or could be whatever.
Well, the Padres played him before Jacob Mizorowski arrived.
Jacob Mizorowski.
I wouldn't mind seeing that guy.
Yeah, it's spelled Mizorowski, but pronounced Mizorowski. That kid's electric, man. He's 6'7" or whatever he is, throwing 102 miles an hour. He made 5 starts and was named to the All-Star team. All right,
which should not have happened. That should not have happened.
Why not?
Because of Christopher Sanchez. Christopher Sanchez deserved to be. I'm showing my Philly native here, but Christopher Sanchez should have been an All-Star. I'm sorry.
Christopher Sanchez should have been an All-Star, yes, but I don't think that excludes the fact that you got a guy who's throwing 103 and striking everybody out.
That's fun.
It's an All-Star. It's an exhibition. I want to see that.
Yeah.
I want to see 103 with a put-away slider. Like that's what I want to see against the best hitters in the world. So that's that. If you're talking about exhibitions and stuff, great. Give me flat out just ridiculous game-changing talent, even if he doesn't have a lot of experience.
He seems to be that. Chris is trying to brighten up our day. We're in playoff contention still. Nothing to be sad about. We do need help from San Francisco and Arizona. No doubt about that.
Is Bill Mel going to do us a solid?
I'm skeptical that this is the real Eric Rupner.
I can guarantee you that is not the real Eric Rupner.
Great to see you on here, fellas. Thanks for your great Padres coverage year-round. So grateful for the support from our talented local media members. Thank you,
I
Team
would have believed
CO.
it until he said talented local media man. That's where it jumped the shark.
Thank you, Padres CEO, and definitely 100% the real Eric Rupner.
Although I will say that is a sentiment that I believe Eric Rupner would have.
I think so too. He always seems to be appreciative of the support from local media.
I can
Back
text
to
him right now, see if that's him if you want.
you could, yeah. Brent, what's more realistic, winning a division or getting the top wild card spot? I'm sure Fangraphs has some odds on that,
Some
perhaps,
numbers on
maybe.
that. Yeah, it's, you know what? It's probably pretty close. You want to talk about straight betting odds? Probably the top wild card would be my guess, but from a realistic standpoint, because the Dodgers don't have a super hard schedule on the stretch either.
Mhm.
So probably realistically, maybe the top wild card by the slimmest of margins.
Uh, yes. Wild card game back +4, +2.5. This is man, I'm looking at so this is sorted based on playoff odds, and so the Padres are actually ahead of the Cubs just by a hair. Win the World Series, clinch a bye. Yeah, interesting. Padres, they do have the Padres ahead of clinch wild card. This is too confusing to do in real time here.
Well, the other thing is, who has the the Padres don't have the tiebreak on the Dodgers? Do they have the tiebreak on the Cubs?
That is a good question.
I got to go back. I forget what they did during them in the regular season.
18.5% chance of winning the division, according to Fangraphs.
Because they faced them both series were in the first half of the year.
Yeah, why don't I remember those at all?
Because they happened so long ago. We've been talking about so much other garbage. We've been focused basically so much on the Dodgers that they both happened in April. That's why. So they dropped 2 of 3 in Chicago and
they
took
won
2 of 3 at Petco Park. So now we have to go into intra-division records, which means what's your record against your own division? So I looked at it. That's the first tiebreaker when you're talking about who's going to have home field advantage. So that belongs to, as we go to MLB standings. Where's the division records?
I think.
Where's the division? Here we go.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, the Cubs against the Central are 15. Sorry, Central are 24-18. The Padres against the West are 24 and 18.
No way.
Right now, it's a deadlock.
That's amazing.
After that, it goes to inter-division record. So basically, subtract those and what they are against. 9-9 against the East. Padres 19-9 against the East. 15-10 against the Central. Okay, the Padres have the tiebreaker.
I have a tough time believing that they are going to finish with the exact same record, within
their own division. Yes, but as we stand right now, okay. So if it doesn't come to that, though, the Padres right now are 10. They have an 11-game advantage over the Cubs on the second tiebreaker.
The Cubs the Cubs go to Pittsburgh, they go to Cincinnati, and they host the Cardinals. I'm going to say, just by virtue of the Red Series, 4 on the road and, 7 total on the road, that they have a tougher road. Now, Padres go to Colorado. On paper, you should win that series, but it's in Colorado, so you never know. 4 against Colorado at Petco Park. Bad team. Season's been over for a long time. Padres are at home. You'd think they'll do well there.
That's 3 wins at least, right?
And then the last 3 at home against Arizona. So I'm going to say that it stacks up more favorably for the Padres, but the Cubs certainly have the potential, especially depending on what happens with the Reds, and how motivated they are at that stretch, that it works out more favorably for the Padres.
So by virtue of the fact they will very likely own the tiebreaker against the Cubs and they do not have it against the Dodgers, that makes the top wild card more realistic.
I would think so.
Yes.
But you're only 2, potentially 3, because of the tiebreak back of the Dodgers. And so I
and again, 1.5, which actually is only a half behind the Cubs for the top wild card.
I just have a, I have a tough time. I don't want to start thinking. I know you have to think about the wild card, but I kind of don't want to think about the wild card until I have to think about the wild card because they're in the position that they're in. We've been talking about the Dodgers, we've been talking about them having a chance. And so, are you ever going to hurt your chances in the wild card by pushing forward for the division? Like, you're trying to win games regardless. And so part of me in my mind, I'm like, let's just go for the division. Let's worry about the division. The chips are going to fall however they will. You can't control what the Cubs do. You can't control what the Mets or anybody else, the Reds do, unless you're facing them head to head. And so for me, my focus is like, let's just worry about the division. It's not every year we've been able to really feel like the Padres have a chance. And so that's what I'm thinking about more than anything, rather than kind of getting lost in all the different possibilities.
Well, then I guarantee you what Mike Schilt is going to say is we're just going to be focused on us. We're going to go focus on winning every single game, and that's what we're going to try and do, and let the chips fall where they may. And because they know right now they can't control whether or not they win a wild card or get the top wild card or win the division. All they can control is whether or not they get a playoff spot. So if they get a playoff spot, we're good. Just go out and win the rest. Win as many games you possibly can, and if you do, play up to your potential and how you've done it all year, you're going to be in the postseason, and that's good enough for me.
Let's see. From Rusty Strings, if this team played like it did in April and May, it wouldn't need help at all. It needs to find its killer instinct. It needs to be able to apply the Dexter coup de grace. Is that from the show Dexter? I can't say I watched the show Dexter.
But Dexter's a great show. I can't say I've watched any of the iterations after the original, but the first one, the concept is just so cool because it's a serial killer who only kills like bad people. So you end up rooting for the serial killer, which is really fun. Like you're rooting for a guy who was objectively a horrible human being because he's doing bad things to objectively more horrible human beings.
Yes.
So like it's actually really a fun show.
Brent chiming in, Padres 23-15 since the All-Star break, Dodgers 19-18. But they are,
they're 4-2 against the Padres since the All-Star break. And also they'll get Max Muncy back at some point. And now Shohei Ohtani apparently is a legitimate starting pitcher again. And they got, since that time, by the way, they also got Blake Snell back from the injured list. They got Blake Trinan back from the injured list. They are trending to become the team. They got Kirby Yates and Tanner Scott back from the injured list. They're trending to become the team we all thought they would be at the beginning of the year before they had 400 people go on the IL.
Yeah, and they're 9-4 since getting swept by the Angels, with most of those wins coming against the Padres. And so they are trending in a decent direction, which is, obviously going to make things a little bit more difficult. How far can the Padres go in this year's playoffs if the season ends today?
They can win the World Series. They have the talent. They have the roster. They have the lineup. They have the manager. They're going to get Jackson Merrill back quickly here from his ankle injury, and he's going to be, I think, motivated as can be to make up for lost time. So, they have a better bench than they have had in a very long time. This team has the ability and the talent to win the World Series. They'll have to get some breaks, but that's legitimately what they're capable of.
Yeah. You mentioned Luis Arraez earlier, and that's, there's been a lot of conversation about Arraez, and it's gone, this isn't necessarily new. It's been a couple weeks when Ryan O'Hearn wasn't getting a whole lot of at-bats, and then O'Hearn does what he did, was a week and a half ago at home, and then he became more of an everyday guy. Gavin Sheets, more of an emergence of Sheets lately. We're seeing the power. People are clamoring for Ramon Laureano to move up in the lineup. He's done so well around kind of that 7th spot. And Schilt had a laugh. People have been asking for production at the bottom of the order, and we get a guy that gives us production at the bottom of the order, and everybody now wants to move him up. So you can see it kind of from both sides there. Like you mentioned, Arraez had a day down yesterday, and our buddy AJ Cassavell, talking about this with him, and then I think he mentioned it with Marty Caswell as well, how people were clamoring for Jackson Merrill to move up around this time last year, All-Star season, and such an important part of 20 plus homers. He was awesome. Took him a little while, being a rookie. And then they finally did it around mid-September, and that ended up being kind of the lineup that we saw once the postseason rolls around. And AJ wondered if, hey, do we see something similar? Do we see the tinkering start to happen maybe in September? Maybe Luis Arraez isn't hit number 2 behind Fernando Tatis Jr. And if they make an adjustment, do they find kind of their playoff lineup that they ride with for the most part going forward, pending some matchups and that sort of thing?
This is radical, but
I'm ready. I'm ready for Derek, because Derek Radical is different from most people's Radical. So I'm ready for this.
About Luis Arraez in the 9 spot, right? Because then you talk about a guy who, if he finds himself again, can turn that lineup over a lot. Assuming you're going to leave Fernando Tatis Jr. in the leadoff spot, you do that. Remember that was kind of in vogue a while ago, when the DH wasn't a thing in the National League, and managers started hitting the pitcher 8th because they wanted that quote unquote like turn over the lineup second leadoff kind of guy. Well, that could be one of those types of situations with the Luis Arraez hitting 9th. It's move a guy like O'Hearn or Merrill up into the 2 spot. That would get you go in your right, left kind of thing, all up and down the order. But now you're doing it with a Gavin Sheets or a Ryan O'Hearn instead, or a Jackson Merrill instead of a Luis Arraez. And you put that dude as your 9 spot hitter. Basically everybody moves up a little bit. Freddie, for me, becomes your number 8, who I think he's more than earned a little bit of a push up the order lineup as well. You've got things you can do there. So why not try something like talking about like major tinkering? I would not be completely opposed to putting a guy like Arraez in the number 9 spot, because I think that would be, you got a 3-time reigning batting champion batting 9th. Other teams would look at that line and be like, what's in front of them? What the hell's going on here? It's almost an intimidation factor. And that would, I think that would be very interesting to see if a hitter like that in that kind of a spot in the lineup.
I don't think many Padres fans would mind that. I think pretty much everybody would be on board. I think there's a fair amount of Luis Arraez fatigue just based on how this season has gone from him, and watching his approach, swinging out of the zone, not walking. The statue takes like 2-0. I don't necessarily understand. You get yourself in an advantageous position, and then you let the pitcher off the hook by, like, it's obvious that you're going to take, and then you swing at something out of the zone, you make weak contact, that sort of thing. I've hated him behind Fernando Tatis Jr. for a long time now. And I asked AJ, I was like, AJ, you know a lot more about baseball than I do.
Which AJ is this?
This is Cassavell. Then it's not Preller. This is AJ Cassavell. I was like, am I crazy? And the short answer was no. Now, based on matchups, that sort of thing, against a righty, having Arraez at second, not the worst thing, but I feel like he's providing little protection for Tatis in that spot, especially since he doesn't provide any threat in terms of power. He makes it a little bit, I think, difficult in terms of Fernando trying to steal, because you don't know what he's going to swing at, and if there's a weak contact pop up, he can't be quite so aggressive. And I just think if you stack, like, who are your scariest hitters? You're probably going to name a bunch of guys before you get to Luis Arraez. And I want to see those guys at the top of the order. Just like you see Ohtani right out of the gates, Betts, Freeman, those guys. Philly with Kyle Schwarber, like a home run threat right out of the gates. I don't know if I have any strong opinions based on the order of, who, if it's Tatis, Merrill, Laureano, Machado, O'Hearn, so on and so forth. But I think those are the guys that I want as my top like 5 or so, and then Arraez somewhere down the line.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, it works. And the thing about Luis is, he's a 3-time batting champion. He's a great guy. I love the man. He's a wonderful human being. He's great in that clubhouse. And I can guarantee you, it sounds like a massive demotion in the lineup, but he wouldn't care. That's a guy who would be like, all right, I'm in the lineup. I'm good. Let's go. Let's do it. I'm going to show you guys I'm the best number 9 hitter in the entire world. And so a lot of guys, you have to worry about their ego in that situation. I don't think you have to worry about that with Luis Arraez. I honestly don't. I honestly believe he's a guy who was like, I'm in the lineup. Let's go do this. And I will say, his struggles this year have not come from lack of efforts or trying. He puts the work in. I see him put the work in every time I'm at Petco Park. He's out there. He's taking the extra swings. He's doing what he needs to do. And also defensively, this is the best season he's ever turned in. So I know he's put a ton of work in on the defensive side. And I don't know if it's one of those situations where it's like he's done so much of that, maybe he's not focused so much on the offensive skill set that he obviously has. And if a guy is working hard to improve a spot in his game that has obviously been a shortcoming for a long time, and he does that, he goes so far over the edge that now he's maybe pushing a little bit too much this way and loses what he was doing wrong. I'm not going to fault the guy for doing that at all, because he's putting in the effort to make himself a better complete ball player.
You know, one thing he does really, he just makes tough defensive plays. You know, I don't know how he stacks out just conventional run of the mill. I'm sure like there's probably a lot of first basemen with better range and whatnot. But when it comes to a tough hop, a tough pick, that sort of thing, he makes some really sneaky, impressive, tough defensive plays. And so as much hand wringing as there is over like his defensive metrics, there's a lot of situations where like it's pretty impressive. I think it's just the offensive component hasn't been there. And, you know, Mike Shildt likes to tout his 3 batting titles. The fact of the matter is he's not winning a 4th straight batting title.
No.
And so
too far gone, right?
You have to focus on what gives you the best opportunity to win this year and what is the optimal lineup for this year. If that Luis Arraez popped up from 22, 23, 24, then okay, now we're thinking potential leadoff guy, maybe in the 2 spot. But you're talking about 2025 Luis Arraez, and he hasn't been the same guy. And if you haven't read the Fangraphs piece from months ago, it's worth going back to. And I think it's even gotten worse since then. And some of it, like one of the overall takeaways was like Luis Arraez kind of becoming a caricature of Luis Arraez. Like he's gone to Luis Arraez, and that's caused his numbers to dip. And hey, used to, you know, his barrel rate numbers were never mind or eye popping. They're better than they were now. And there's more hard hit and that sort of thing. And obviously the average, we're used to seeing this guy well over 300. It's not the case this year. And so we'll see if Mike Shildt does it, because we know Mike Shildt is very, very loyal at times to a fault with his guys, very complimentary, wants to boost their confidence. And to this point, he hasn't seemed willing to really make that drastic of a move with Luis Arraez. We'll see if that changes in the coming weeks.
Yeah, it's I think if he's able to sit that guy down and say, listen, this is what we need to do, it would go all right. Now, what I don't know is if Shildt or the Padres themselves can even conceive of something this dramatic, you know, because it seems so far out there. So I'm not sure if it would even be a option that they would consider, because they don't come up with it as an option, period. But what's, I guess, and again, being positive, Derek, today, it's not a bad issue to have. If you can have, hey, our 3-time batting champ isn't really looking like that. He's only hitting like 285. So let's put him in the 9 hole. You know what I mean? That's something that we should truly consider doing. He's still got the second most multi-hit games in the National League this year. Like he hasn't been awful by any stretch. He just hasn't been what we expect from Luis Arraez. So, and again, he's a guy who could walk out at any given moment. He could hit 430 for the rest of the year. I mean, you just don't know when it's coming.
I know you're on a time crunch, so we can let you go. Any quick thoughts on Michael King? There's that empty slot available Sunday against the Twins. Some question if he does a rehab start. I haven't seen any news on that. To me, I'm like, let's get as many big league starts as we can out of this guy. Like, let's not waste a Michael King start in El Paso or Lake Elsinore. That's just me. Any thoughts on that going forward, or on the rotation as a whole? Because after doing, Cortez, Darvish, Pivetta doing some good things against the Dodgers, this is another kind of rough 3-game stretch against Seattle.
Yeah, it's JP Sears is kind of finding himself. And again, Seattle's seen him a lot. He's been first 4 years with the A's. So he's not exactly an unknown commodity to them. I think you can do with Michael King what the Dodgers basically did with Ohtani is, it's going to be a bullpen game that day. So Michael King is coming out. He's not a quote-unquote rehab start. He's an opener, more or less. Build him up at the big league level. Because he becomes another guy who, even if he's limited to 50, 55 pitches in his first one, that with Michael King, that could get you through three and a third innings. And now it's not quite so much of a bullpen game. And with how good this bullpen is, you can do things like that. So yeah, I don't think there's any need to put him down at El Paso or any place else to give him another rehab start. Let him start building up at the big league level, because he's just that good, The Dodgers able to do it with Ohtani, give him 3 or 4 starts where you're not getting 5 innings out of him, and then turn him loose after that, because you have the horses at the back end to make it happen.
Fully agree. All right, Derek, get yourself out to Snapdragon. Everybody, enjoy your weekend. Have a great, safe Labor Day. Twins on the road, Baltimore Orioles at home, and we will see you next Thursday.